Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harbinder Narula. We are at that part of the year where we are overwhelmed with the newness of everything around us. New projects, new dreams, vision, and we want to transform our lives. We come up with New Year resolutions. But the challenge with New Year resolutions is that there are pitfalls and they fail. Today, I have a special guest with me, Gaurav Bhagat, who has trained with Grant Cardone and BJ Fogg, who shares with us his own experience as well as a structure to understand what is it that we could do to make our New Year resolutions work. Let's speak to Gaurav Bhagat of Gaurav Bhagat Academy. Welcome, Gaurav Bhagat, to Wellbeing Wednesdays. This is that time of the year when all of us are making resolutions. We are looking at newness, new projects, both professionally and personally. But then, whatever resolutions we make, we sometimes tend to fail to stick to them. What are some of the reasons why the New Year resolutions fail to stick?
Thank you so much, Harbinder. Like I said, it is a pleasure to be on Wellbeing Wednesdays, and I've been following the program, and it's been, absolutely fantastic. And you've had, such good content in the past. So thank you so much. And I love how you start the session with the point of resolutions, because to my mind, I mean, resolutions are made to fail. It's just by nature of how it really is, and we see that in fact 72% of resolutions actually start failing by as soon as the 15th of January. So, the last 2-3 days, everyone's been busy, and I've been like reaching out to a few people, wishing them and all of that. And, just asking them how it's going. And everyone's like, oh, you know what? We're setting our resolutions for 23. And I'm like, you know what? You're setting yourself up for failure. So resolutions, like I said, by nature, by virtue of what they are just that they're meant to set up, people for failure. Some of the reasons why it happens, I know there was a workshop I used to do, and I used to talk about 11 reasons why people would actually fail when it came to let's just say even wrongly set goals. I'm not a big fan of the term resolution, but yes, I mean it's fashionable, and that's what people end up doing a lot at this time of the year. So jumping straight into it, one of the biggest reasons is motivation. Right? Motivation is the villain of the piece. I mean, everyone says, oh, I was motivated, but then the motivation, went down. That's exactly what happens with motivation. Motivation goes from, burst to bust. Motivation comes in waves. Motivation is high and low, sometimes even in one day. And you're talking about, keeping it constant over the course of 1 year. So motivation is probably the biggest villain. I say it's like the biggest villain, of your piece. And, of course, I always say you cannot rely on motivation alone. So that is, one really big way, or one very big reason why people actually go down. Number two is obviously not having a process. You need to have a process. You need to have a system. Your goals cannot be generic. Your goals cannot be vague. Your goals cannot be only in your head. Right, your goals cannot be written and then put on a post-it and then lost and then brought back next year and said "Achha, kya likha tha?" And then you're like scratching it out and rewriting it and all of that. You can't do that as well. It has to be in a place where you will see them, you will review them, you will act on them, and if need be, you will also course correct. So I think that's one very big important reason behind it. Another very big reason for failure, and of course there are many, we won't get into all, but I will give you the key ones, I think, is that one thing that plagues everyone, and that's POA, which is paralysis of analysis. The quest for perfection. Everyone's like, they want to do something, but they're like, abhi, time nahi hai. Right now it has to be perfect. And if you're talking about joining a gym, they'll be like, okay, first let me get the accessories, let me sign up at the right gym, let me get the right people. And hence, that quest for perfection and that paralysis of analysis and the overthinking it, I think, is one very big reason why people actually go ahead and fail. So just some of the reasons, that came to mind right off the cuff in terms of where people go wrong.
So, Gaurav, we make goals which are usually, of a long term. We say that this year we are going to do this. But at times it is not possible. What makes a person leave a goal midway? Is it the lack of conviction, or is it there, like you mentioned, that there's a lack of process that we need to follow to ensure that our goals will see the light of the day? Uh, how can one turn their resolutions into a habit forming thing so that they are able to do this slowly but surely?
Yeah. Again, a super question. And I think where people go wrong is that sometimes the goal that's set is very lofty. It's also a longer duration. Normally, when I ask people to set goals, I said you have to have your short term, your medium term, your long term, and the legacy. But the short term goal is a 3 month goal. It's a goal that you have to have, right in front of you and say, okay, this, will lead into my medium term, which will lead into my long term, which will lead into my legacy. So it's actually a bridge, that one step kind of leads to another. And I think the one that people need to focus on is that, the 3 month goal, the short term goal first. And obviously every goal has to have an action. So with that goal, that you've set, even for the shortest term, you have to have a weekly, action, a weekly review plan. So it almost has to be a step-by-step journey. I mean, you can't think, okay, my turnover has to get to, X number of, crores or tens of crores or hundreds of crores, whatever it is. You have to take a step in this week, which is going to take you towards first that quarterly goal, and then eventually build its way up to the annual goal and the long-term goal. For some, the long-term goal could be even a 5-year goal. But what the pandemic has taught us, and what the last 2.5 years have taught us, is that you can have this really long-term lofty goal. And it's from this book that I was also reading recently, a book called Rework, which has been written by the CEO of Basecamp. And he talks about is that sometimes it's nothing more than a guess, right? You think it's a long-term goal, but it's actually a long-term guess because you never know what's going to happen. So always be ready, for things that can pop up. And when they do, you have to course correct. So that's something that's very important to do for everyone who's listening and watching in.
So, Gaurav, you have been evangelizing this concept of tiny habits, which was actually coined by BJ Fogg. Now, he talks of the Fogg behavior model. You know, what exactly is this, and how can this be, useful or beneficial for goal setting? It's not just for the beginning of the year, but for goal setting otherwise.
Very true. So BJ Fogg has been one of the most brilliant people, I've come across. So of course, I've been trained personally by him and his sister Linda in the Tiny Habits, methodology. It all started with a book that I read, and the book was obviously Tiny Habits, and that's where it all began. But when I saw the concept of tiny habits and how it can be married to everything, I mean, I'm talking about tiny habits in sales, I'm talking about tiny habits in health, I'm talking about tiny habits and goals in general. Such a powerful concept. And BJ's been teaching this for the longest time. In fact, I think he started teaching the course in Stanford maybe around 20 years ago, before it was fashionable, before, the Atomic Habits and the James Clears and all those other guys came who are better marketeers. BJ Fogg is the OG of tiny habits, and he's been teaching it for a long time. And primarily what his model is, and when you mentioned the Fogg model, there's actually an equation, and it stands for B is equal to MAP, right? And the B stands for behavior. So any new behavior that you're looking to start, any new, well, let's just say even habit that you're looking to start, because habits and behaviors are two separate things, but I won't get into the technicalities. But let's just say there's a new behavior that you want to start. B is equal to MAP. What is the MAP? Well, the M, like we spoke about, is the villain of the piece. It's the motivation, right? The A is something called, the ability. So there's something called the ability chain. We'll perhaps talk about that in a short while as well. And the P is equal to a prompt. So the point is the motivation, the ability, and the prompt. When all three of them come together, that is when, that action is actually going to happen. Let me give you an example. And we'll take this example again, from the times of the pandemic. There was, sites that came up, be it the ketos or all these guys who were saying, fund this, case or Mission Oxygen. Mission Oxygen is a great example, right? So people wanted to gift. They wanted to give. They wanted to, go ahead and contribute. The motivation was everywhere because, they were seeing, things that were coming up on WhatsApp saying someone's in hospital, oxygen needed. The ability, the way to make it happen easily was the fact that there was an app where you could just go and through Keto, you could transfer money. It made it easy. The ability was there. And the prompt was the fact that they were messaging, it's popping up all the time. There were prompts coming. It's like, ye hospital mein hai, aisa hai, waisa hai. So what happened is when people wanting to contribute was the behavior, the MAP was the motivation, the ability, and the prompt. And all three, when they came together, it actually made it happen. If the same thing was to happen today and someone was to say, hey, contribute towards so and so cause, I mean, I'm sure people might, but in terms of the quantum of the contributions that would happen would actually be a fraction. And that again is because the B is equal to MAP.
Gaurav, that's a very beautiful, equation that you shared, and what Fogg has been talking of. Now, while we discuss the goal setting perspective, we have another one to ponder, which is setting realistic goals. Now, how does this play a key role in building everyday tiny habits towards a better living?
Yeah. So it's very important. And of course, we've always spoken about the concept of SMART goals, where a goal must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. My thought process is that goals, yes, they should be SMART goals, but they should also be goals that shouldn't overwhelm you. And I think that's where, the beauty of tiny habits comes in, where when you're actually setting a goal, you actually take one which is slightly, well, achievable, the A, or like the attainable, but you bring in and you build in the tiny habits routine. And obviously subsequently we can talk about how you would do that, and maybe we could take examples of a health goal, where I know it's one goal which I've missed out on now 2 years running, and that's actually been a weight goal, and I just haven't been able to do it until last year. I said, what, I think it's now time to apply the tiny habits routine to making this happen. And thankfully and finally, in the last month, I've been able to drop like 3.5 kilos, and I'm feeling a lot more energetic and healthier and everything else than ever before. So I had actually started applying the tiny habit system, something which I hadn't been doing in this particular domain, and it's been brilliant.
So, Gaurav, they say that taking baby steps is important towards achieving goals, but taking the first step seems to be the toughest one. So, how do you think that one should get inspired to take that first step towards your goal?
Yeah. And again, let's take that health goal, for a section. So, for a second, for this section's discussion. And, what would be the tiniest, step that you could take here is just wake up in the morning, all right, and just put on your running shoes. That's it. You're not expected to go out and, actually run. You're not expected to go out and do a marathon or anything like that. Just wake up every morning, okay, sit on a couch and just put on your shoes. And once you have those shoes on, the mind will start thinking, yeah, jute to pehn hi liye, thoda chal bhi lete hain. So then what's going to happen is, you just start doing, maybe just going down to get some, milk or some veggies or the papers, or, take a dog for a walk or whatever. So you just start going out and doing a little bit. So it's just about taking that tiny step. Once you've been doing that for a few days, the mind will say, what, let me just try and walk like 500 meters, or a km. And then eventually the mind will be conditioned to actually scale it. I mean, the reason why I say tiny to 10x is because you start tiny, you start taking even the smallest of actions, and then you just start scaling it, you start multiplying it. And before you know it, the same person, who wasn't even willing to get out of bed will probably be willing to run a half marathon, a full marathon, an ultra, who knows? But it's about how you use tiny habits to actually go ahead and scale. It's about taking those baby steps.
So, Gaurav, when we talk about taking those baby steps, there is also that, and you spoke about keeping reasonable goals, attainable goals. Now, keeping smaller targets and working over them can be a long-term solution to achieving a New Year resolution, But then, when you're looking at the corporate environment, you're sometimes expected to create ambitious goals, and there is this concept that create an ambitious goal. ये अगर पूरा achieve नहीं भी हुआ तब भी you achieve larger than what you would have otherwise achieved, or for that matter, there's a concept of that you need to stretch yourself. What is your take on this?
I love that. And what I ask managers and promoters and company CEOs and team leaders, when they say that, oh, tiny is not good enough, you got to go really big and you got to go the 10x way, I sometimes tell them to ask themselves, how did that work out for you in the year gone by? Okay, how did it play out for you in 2022? Did the team go out and do that, or did they disappoint you again? Because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So trust the process. Okay, not everyone can play the 10x game. Yes, there are some guys who can do it, like Grant Cardone can do it. There's a whole bunch of people here who can do it. But 10x is not for everyone. You have to kind of start small and you have to scale it. So, my advice to managers, promoters, people who may be listening in and have been disappointed with the way things have gone for their teams because they haven't been able to achieve as they should. I would say try the tiny habits way. The tiny habits way is only going to be in terms of building up that behavior, building up that habit, taking it to the next step. But it's going to happen one step at a time, and obviously there will be ways, and there will be milestones which will help you multiply, which will say, okay, now it's time to step it up, but trust the process. I think that is what is really, really important in this space.
So, Gaurav, when you talk about trust the process, and this is from both sides, the people who are asking you, pushing you to create your own goals, whether it is your family, your friends, your bosses, uh, there are always some kind of a mental block that you hit, right? Or from the point of view of your teams, when you start seeing excuses coming in, I mean, sometimes you don't realize, but the other person can immediately see whether there's a mental block that the person has hit or there's an excuse. How do you suggest that one can overcome these mental blocks and excuses?
Yeah. So it's very, very important to be in a space, where you have to be negativity free. I think in the world today, there's just too much negativity. There's too many people saying "nahi hoga," can't do, you will burn out. So a lot of that kind of commentary is always there. And I think the first thing is that whatever you set out to do, once it's in writing, okay, now it's a commitment. Yes, that you made, maybe to your organization, but it's a commitment that you made to yourself. And I think it's very, very important to put that out, everywhere. And also, just know that this is something that has to be done. And obviously, it's going to happen by being in action. Now, I know GC would always say, okay, massive action is the way. But again, it starts by going small. So even if it is a little step where it is just about taking, one micro baby step towards, that particular goal, that particular thing that you said you would do, just go ahead and do that. But don't be in a state where you're out of action. Don't be in a state where, you roll up and you become a ball in your bed and saying, aaj sardi hai, aaj bahar nahi niklenge. As one of my other coaches and mentors, Richard Dolan would always say, the time is not to be a ball, or if the time is to be a ball, it's time to be a cannonball. Okay, you want to go into that can, you want to like bust out of, that mindset that is actually holding you back. You can't be rolled up in your bed and say, abhi sardi hai, baad mein dekhenge. So it's just being in action is very, very important. I think surrounding yourself with, positive, well-meaning people is very important. I think being in an ecosystem of success is very important. So people where, successful people are hanging out. One of my trainings, I would always talk about CAPES, the CAPES. The C is consistency. You have to stay consistent. Even if it's a little action, you have to stay consistent. You have to stay adaptable. I mean, today we're already hearing, oh, China mein COVID hai, recession aa raha hai. Great. If these things come, I mean, they come. We have to stay adaptable. We have to stay agile where we can take, the direction that we need to take. Okay, you have to persevere. You have to have persistence. You have to carry on irrespective of what the world throws at you. You also have to be in a state of execution. So that's the E, right? You always have to execute. Even if it's a tiny step, you have to be executing. And the S is, of course, surround yourself with successful people. Success, mindset is very, very important as well. So those are things that are going to play a very big role in, the difference between succeeding and not succeeding.
Gaurav, I couldn't have agreed with you more on this. I think CAPES is just what can be the mantra for success. But when we make goals, we as like you said that we can't be perfect every time in everything that we do. When we make goals and work towards them, there may be mistakes that we will see that we have made, on the journey. How should one stay focused and keep the momentum going when you hit the speed bump?
Yeah, and the funny part is that in recent times, we're just letting everyone know that it's not okay to fail. Okay, we're telling it to our teams, we're telling it to our children, we're telling it to nieces, nephews, colleagues, and all of that. Everyone says, failure is not an option. First of all, it's okay to fail. Okay, but once you've failed, once you've fallen off the horse, it's also important to get back up. Okay, I'm not saying learn from your mistakes, but I am saying that if those mistakes have been made, acknowledge. Okay, don't deny, don't brush it on the carpet. But we also have to continue to keep moving forward as well. So point being, I think what is very, very important over here is spending some time on your goals and writing them down, and also having a system where you write them, but you also review them either on a daily basis or at least on a weekly basis. So if you know that, okay, I'm falling behind, okay, this was the target that I'd set, and now I'm actually starting to fall behind. The point is that now you have to say, okay, what do I have to do differently? Okay, or am I just now going to shut the book, never start on this process again and just put this away altogether? A lot of the people that we train at the GBA, a lot of people that who are students of mine as well, the first thing we take with them or we give to them is the Scaling with GB goal planner. And in that goal planner is that we have figured out the goals that matter, the durations that matter, but all of these are driven by why, okay, by purpose. So again, if people say money is my why, money is my motivation, I said, dude, it's going to fail you. Okay, because money can be the means of your, it can be the result of your why. It cannot be the why. So it has to be a bigger calling. And I think if people can identify that and use that when they go out there and set their goals and have a system of writing, reviewing, and course correcting, I think that will be one of the, like fail-safe ways of making it happen. I've seen it. I've been doing this for too long, and I've seen too many people, go off the path. And as soon as they stop following the system, that's when they go wrong.
GB Fogg talks of the 7 steps of behavioral design. And you've undergone that training program, which is why I'm asking you this, that can you share more about that in the context of a New Year resolution and fulfilling our dreams? Because, most of the time, the New Year resolutions are an outcome of a vision that we have for ourselves, our lives, right? How are those beneficial?
Yeah. So again, the beauty of Fog system is the 7 steps. And for a second, let's again take the health goal, right? Since that's something we've been speaking of, and that's what Wednesday Wellness is also related to. So the first step, and this is of course something that everyone who's listening in should also write down. Step number 1 is always clarify the aspiration. Okay, so clarify the aspiration, and by that I mean, okay, maybe it's losing weight, maybe it means getting a particular BMI, maybe it's about being a particular maybe could be any related health goal. So you clarify the aspiration. So that's going to be the first step. So now, for example, let's take it as a weight goal that you want to lose weight. Now, if that's your aspiration, how much weight do you want to lose? That can be part of it as well. Step number 2 is about exploring behaviors that will get you there. So, okay, if you're talking about losing weight, now what are the things that are going to help us lose weight? Is it going to be like diet control? Is it going to be, joining a gym? Is it going to be getting a coach? Is it going to be about, getting an accountability buddy? So what are the behaviors that are going to get you there? Is it going to be yoga? Is it going to be running? So what is it going to get you there? So once you clarified the aspiration, the next thing you want to list down is all the behaviors that will help you get to the aspiration. So step 1, clarify. Step 2 is explore the behaviors. Now, the third step gets interesting, and it's about prioritizing those behaviors. So prioritizing is something that's very important because, if someone said me, GB, do yoga, it probably wouldn't work. But if someone would say, let's go and do, weight training at, the gym, maybe something that I'm better with. Previously, I would have probably not gone in for, for diets and all of that. But again, when I got into the right ecosystem and someone said that, okay, skip breakfast and, drink this concoction, it's actually started working out. So prioritizing the behaviors is very, very important. And there is something that, obviously readers of Tiny Habits would know this. It's called finding your golden behaviors. The golden behaviors, if you were to draw 4 quadrants, is actually in the top right-hand quadrant. And it's what you can, find the maximum benefits by doing. So number 1, clarify the aspiration. Number 2, explore the behaviors. Number 3, prioritize those behaviors. Now, once you've done that, this is where Tiny Habits comes in. The 4th step is start tiny. Okay, start tiny. Like I said, if you want to, do that, that running or whatever you plan to do, first thing is pick up those shoes, put on those shoes, and just, sit on a couch. But you start tiny. We also spoke about the behavior model where it says D is equal to MAP. Okay, the 5th one is actually about finding a good prompt. Now, prompts could be internal, prompts could be external. Internal prompt would be, प्यास लगी है तो पानी पिया, right? Internal prompt. External prompt, okay, an alarm goes off, a post-it pad is put up on the wall. External prompt. But then, Fogg also talks about the action prompt, and that's about, okay, something that you do every day in your routine, which can be followed by the action that you now want to start. So let's just say that, you get out of bed, your feet hit the ground, and you don't say, okay, I think I should go back to sleep. It's just say, today's going to be an awesome day. So your prompt is your feet hitting the ground. It's something that's going to happen every day. So, number 5 is finding a good prompt. Number 6 is about celebrating success. Okay. And Fox says this, and I love it. People change by feeling good, not by feeling bad. Think about it. From the time we were little babies, trying to walk. I mean, because our parents or uncle, aunt said, Aja, Aja, very good, very good. They clap for us. Okay. We actually changed because, we felt better. Our teachers encouraged us, and their encouragement meant that, we took a certain path in our lives. If on the flip side, we were always getting beaten up, we'd say, ye to bekar hai, ye to karna nahi hai. So celebrating success is very, very important. Celebration is something that, we have just forgotten how to do. So that's very important. And of course, the last step is about troubleshoot. Okay, if something needs course correction, course correct it. Okay, but once it's on the right path, then you work towards multiplication. And that's where the tiny to 10x comes in. So again, to summarize all 7 steps, step number 1, clarify the aspiration. Step number 2, explore the behaviors that will get you there. Step number 3 is about prioritizing those behaviors. Step number 4 is starting tiny. Step number 5 is finding a good prompt. Step number 6 is about celebrating success. And step number 7 is about troubleshooting, multiplying and taking it to 10x. So I hope your listeners and viewers find that useful.
Absolutely. I think this is brilliant because, it's beginning from putting your vision to action and then helping you achieve it, overcoming all the battles that you may face on the way. So, Jimmy, my next question to you is, how can one map their achievements of different tiny successes? Because what happens is when you achieve something really big, you feel very great about it. But these are small things and sometimes fundamental, basic, and you feel कि यार इसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है?
I think one of the biggest disservices that people are doing to themselves today is the fact that they are not celebrating success. Think about it. When we were small, okay, I'm talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, even if someone came and gave us like a small sweet, pagal ho jate the. We should run around the house and say, oh, chocolate mila, sweet mili, lollipop mili, chewing gum mila, whatever. Like, we used to go crazy. The smallest of things mattered when we were, children. We would celebrate everything. And then somewhere along the way, okay, things just started changing. We said, yaar, ye to choti baat hai. What is the big deal? Right? Itni badi deal hui hai, yaar, kuch bhi nahi hai. I should have done, 10x of this particular deal. So the point is that along the way, people have just forgotten, the act of celebration. It's very, very important to celebrate even the smallest of things. Like in my tiny habits routine, okay, the first celebration that happens for me in the morning is when I wake up in the morning, okay, I get out of bed, my feet hit the ground, and I say, today is going to be an awesome day. Okay, my celebration is saying like a yes, right? Even just being alive to get out of your bed and saying today is going to be an awesome day, even that is, celebratory. I would get out, I would walk out of the room, I would pick up a glass of water because I know it's supposed to be healthy first thing in the morning to drink something. And I drink that glass of water and I do a fist pump and I said, yes, I have done that as well. So itni choti cheezon ko aap celebrate karoge, and then obviously there's the bigger things, there will be the deals and there will be everything else, but never underestimate this thing called celebration. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, all the stuff it releases in the mind in terms of oxytocin, dopamine, and all the other positive things that come out in your brain. That's what you really want more of in your life. So just think about it, like even like when you were going back to when you were a 4, 5, 6-year-old, someone gave you a sweet, go crazy. Even the smallest of wins that happens, just record it, put it down. If you write a journal, like a gratitude journal, super. If you have, just a celebration journal, great. It can just be on your phone. I mean, I'm not saying, go and buy yourself a book. Matlab, phone mein ek notes kholo yaar, usme dal do ke, aaj ye hua, acha tha, matlab, just felt good about it. So we don't have to complicate it, right? And hence I say, the quest for perfection, the paralysis of analysis, kaise hoga, bas karo, matlab, sab kuch hoga. So that would be my advice.
Maybe I have 2 more questions that I added to the list. Yeah, and I think these are going to be more useful than anything else that we've spoken of, because nothing tastes sweeter than success, and nothing can be better learning than what you have seen in the real life. So, what has been your journey? Because I personally know your journey. I know you started off really early. You had challenges that you faced, and you've overcome those challenges, you have created a success for yourself, then you've also had people around you who have faced challenges. You lost your brother. uh, I know that it is not just about you trying to fulfill your desires and resolutions and keeping your goals. It is also about creating an ecosystem of people around you succeeding. So what I want from to understand from you is what has worked for you and what has not worked for you. I mean, you've got trained with Grant Cardone, you've got trained with BJ Fogg, and you have your own real life journey even before that. So how do you all put this together?
Yeah, wow. So that is a deep question. And so, of course, this is something that I always felt the world would need to know. And hence, obviously, I'm writing a book, by the name of Smashed, Bashed, Yet Not Dashed, which hopefully, as soon as Mrinalini, my editor, allows, thinks it's good enough, will actually be published. Obviously, there's also a podcast, by the same name as well, where season 1 was about, my journey, and season 2 and 3 have taken on, other inspirational people as well. I believe that everything has taught me something, So right from the time when I was a student in Sinan, I was getting, bashed by the best boxer in a boxing ring, which is where the book opens. There were lessons to be learned over there. That time I won best loser. And for most, that would be like, you got a medal for being the best loser. But the point is, even that taught me, something. Failing in my class 11 math exam or getting a compartment, even that was, something that taught me something. Failing on entrepreneurial ventures. I mean, my first venture as a failure was, at the age of 17 when I did the stock market game. Even that taught me something. My money that I did well with in subsequent ventures went the stock market, and Harshad Mehta crash happened. Okay, and I got wiped out over there. Subsequently in college, I got wiped out again. So the point is, I think everything has really taught me something. But I've also kept moving forward, and I said, okay, this happened, shit happens, but we need to move forward, and hence moving on to the next thing. And I think there's been a lot of people I've learned from, over time. My dad has been a great story. My mom, she soldiered through, disease until we finally lost her. Just so many instances that have happened in life. And again, if need be, going to a mentor, finding a mentor, saying, okay, I want to climb Mount Everest as well. Show me how it's done. So you want to follow the path that someone has already taken before you. I think once I started seeing success, one of my turning points was that, yes, I have climbed the ladder of success. I continue to climb the ladder of success. But taking from John Maxwell, how can I become a ladder builder for others? So when the GBA was formed, I mean, Consortium was, already crushing it, is still crushing it. But the GBA was formed also as a give back, on terms of how could I help. I spend a lot of time with students right now. I go into universities and I speak pro bono. I go into corporates and I work with a lot of working professionals. And of course, I have a lot of SMEs who come into, my programs and my courses. And it's also a give back, to empower, to say, okay, this has been my journey. And I think that if you would just, perhaps take from some of the experiences and the mistakes or even the successes that I've had, I think it's very important to be focused on, the successes and the positive stuff. I think that helps immensely as well. And that's really where I'm at the moment. So there's a lot of give back, and there's a lot of teaching through experiences and things that have happened in my journey. So it's amazing that you brought that up.
GB, my last question to you is: every one of us have two kinds of goals that we work on. One has got to do with our profession, and which is usually the number oriented, that I want to be in the top 10 this year, I want to be the second best company or the market leader. And then we are talking about sales goals, quarter on quarter, but year end also brings us to a discussion with the management. And many of these goals are also inspired or pressured by people outside of your it's your bosses, your corporate environment. And on the other side, we have our personal goals, which is more to do with our lifestyle, more to do with our relationships. These are more qualitative goals than quantitative, right? Both the systems, your own life journey, as well as BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits, is there a different process that we follow for each of these sides of goals, or it's a common process? How do we contextualize to qualitative versus quantitative goals that we set for ourselves?
Yeah. So many years ago, I came across the concept of the wheel of life, and would almost talk about, how goals have to be in 6 areas. And let's take a look at it as an example from, let's say a tire on a vehicle. Now, so if the tire is fully inflated, the right pressure, well-rounded, super, that car's going to run. But if even one of those areas, okay, in that wheel is actually defective, and it's going to be like a flat tire, and it's going to hold you back, it's going to slow you back. And what are the 6 areas? And you mentioned, personal and professional. My belief, to everyone, is that focus on the work first. If you're a student, focus on your education. If you're a working professional, then focus on the work that you do. Business owner, obviously, yes, again, the work that you do. So the first area is always work. Because I believe if your work is going right, then everything else is going to go right. But don't be so obsessed with that you're actually neglecting some of the other areas. What are the other areas? The finance side. So yes, once you have the work goal in place, you're doing well at work, you're making some surplus money, put that into the finance goal, which will be an opportunities fund, which would be a not a rainy day fund, but like, let's just say an opportunities fund. The third would be a lifestyle fund, okay, like a lifestyle goal. So enjoy something. I mean, you've hit a particular milestone, enjoy it, celebrate success, go out and buy yourself that new phone, that new car, the new whatever you want. I mean, this is just even a new wallet, a new shirt, whatever it is. Have lifestyle goals. Number 4 is health goals. Like, we realized, okay, that if health is lost, everything is lost. I mean, you've been a big proponent of, good health all your life. Okay. And which is why, you're as fit and, as informed as you are, because health has always been a priority. Very important. Have those health goals. Okay. Number 5 is have a mental goal. So you must always, have something which will be challenging you, which takes you towards, spirituality, well-being, doing a course, teaching a course, writing a book, even giving back to charity. I know you do a lot of seva, at the Gurdwara. Very good. I mean, even that is, a mental, goal. And of course, the last one is family and relationships. Because in the end, what are you earning everything for? Right? It's about, what you want to give back, to the relationships that you have with your colleagues, with your family members, with your friends. I mean, one day we're all going to pass. Now, when that happens, what are people going to say about us? Is it going to say that, okay, this guy was, and I was watching that movie over Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life, it's that black and white movie, Cary Grant, I think it was. And, you've got that old man, who is, really, it was all about money. And, he dies, just a grumpy old man. So, and yet on the other side, you had, I think it was Cary Grant, who, had just a life where he built relationships and people came up for him and it was happiness. So I think that's an important aspect. Kya karoge itna paisa ke saath, right? I think being well-rounded is very important. So personal, professional, find balance. I think that's something that's my advice to everyone listening in.
I think it's a beautiful advice, because at the end of the day, you need to have a fulfilling life, and that is the reason why we set our resolutions in the first place, because we want to end up having a fulfilled life when we pass on. And Gaurav, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I absolutely know your conviction in having a better, fulfilled, holistic life, and the quest for knowledge that you have. And it's not does not end with the quest of knowledge, but also sharing that knowledge with the world, which is what is really beautiful about you and your life. Thank you so much for taking our time to speak with us, and we wish you a very, very happy new year, and we hope that everybody else also benefits from whatever you have shared.
Thank you so much, Harbinder. Like I said, it was an absolute pleasure coming on, and I was just happy to share some of these insights, and wishing all your viewers and listeners an amazing 2023 as well. I'm sure they're going to crush it. And remember, you can start tiny, but you will go to 10x. It's a process. Enjoy it and follow the system. It totally works. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.